Well, Vicki, it's worth pointing out much of that report, as you can see here, was redacted in an effort to maintain the privacy of these young victims. But there are several instances that detail disturbing instances of abuse.
Yeah, even with that, the investigators behind that report feel those instances are more in line with a series of poor choices, mistakes, and flawed judgment, not a cover-up. It's the conclusion reinforced multiple times throughout these 90 pages. LMPD did not engage in an effort to cover up misconduct in the Explorer program. However, that conclusion does not imply that these matters have been handled without error. To the contrary, the report says, we conclude that there have been violations of policy and mistakes in judgment, some significant. Metro Council President David James.
If there were mistakes made, then those are mistakes, and then maybe there's something that needs to take place. If there were intentional acts that took place, which we cannot determine yet because we haven't read it yet, then that's a whole different story.
Much of those cited mistakes and judgments are directed at decisions made about Officer Kenneth Betts. Betts was indicted by a Jefferson County grand jury in connection with sex abuse allegations from former participants in the department's Youth Explorer program. After an internal investigation, members of the LMPD command staff offered opinions to Chief Conrad on what should happen to Betts. All agreed that Betts had committed a serious act of misconduct and should be separated from the LMPD. Instead, after it was learned he had an illness, which according to the report, the nature of that illness was never independently verified, he continued working in the department on desk duty, maintaining his health benefits. He later resigned. That resignation allowed him to continue working in law enforcement at another police department. The report also references a disc with nude photos of one of the teenage victims. That disc was destroyed by an investigating officer who said it lacked evidentiary value. The parents of that teen were never informed of its existence. The report says the judgment of that investigating officer was flawed. Despite the findings, Metro Councilwomen Angela Leet and Jessica Green have lost faith in the now suspended Explorer program.
As a parent, I think that it just hits you in the gut when you read these kind of allegations. So, no, unequivocally, I would not send my baby.
I would not either. I think when you put on your mom's lenses for this, I think we, as women, tend to have a different reaction.
And in fairness to the members of the Metro Council there, when we spoke to them, they had only recently received the report and had not had a chance to fully review it. The Public Safety Committee will review that full report at a meeting next month.
And Eric, you've gone through it too. This report is extremely hard to read. Kids as young as 16 who wanted a career in law enforcement now saying they were preyed on by those they trusted.
Sleepovers, sexual favors, including oral sex for an LMPD ride-along. A teen claiming an officer crawled into bed with him while attending an out-of-state conference. It's just some of what's contained in this 90-page report, detailing allegations of abuse and how those allegations were handled. The first indication there's anything wrong comes to light July 20th, 2013. A female explorer identified as Explorer 1 confides to another officer she's getting phone calls and inappropriate texts from then officer Kenny Betts. Betts admits to an error in my judgment and resigns from the program 2 days later. In the weeks ahead, an investigation uncovers more stories of abuse. Explorer 2 says at age 18 he received a speeding ticket in Boone County and says Betts offered to take care of it in exchange for sex. He also alleges Betts repeatedly offered him money for sex, but Explorer 2 maintains the pair never had a sexual relationship. Betts, the report details, invited multiple explorers to his home. 2 said they went there to watch TV but ended up engaging in oral sex. Another showed up for a ride-along and said Betts forced him to leave when he wouldn't agree to sex. Another explorer claims Betts crawled into bed with him at a conference in Colorado and touched him inappropriately. Betts, who resigned in 2014, was the only officer in question until allegations were made against Officer Brandon Wood in July 2016. One explorer, it's alleged, was texted a video of Wood having sex with another man. Then, according to the report, there were suggestive messages Wood sent to another young man, and 2 explorers claiming to have had sex with Wood. One explorer said of Wood he was scared of what he would do and left the program because of him.
Betts has quit the force. Wood, meanwhile, was fired in April 2017, but at last check, he was appealing. Now, we know right now there are at least 6 pending lawsuits claiming explorers were sexually abused, and the abuse was covered up at the hands of officials. I'm Lauren Adams, WLKY News.